We begin this lesson with an idea of what's interesting to our readers and why. This lesson is less about technique than philosophy, or perhaps a better way to think about it is as a cognitive framework for approaching the task at hand. It presents the foundation for thinking about plot pragmatically and strategically. Although we've talked about how to write an interesting story, the target isn't fundamentally writing an interesting piece of fiction. The real target, if we're being precise, and we are now, is the brain of another human being. You're trying to compose cues for a cognitive simulation that will pull another person out of her day, with all the errands and work and kids and bills and mothers-in-law and broken computers and doctor's appointments, and draw her from that little life into your little musings, you arrogant bastard, you. I kid, but only a little. Our target, that other brain, is like all other human brains. It has more or less the same neuroanatomy and neurochemistry. The same processes that hold your sister's attention hold the attention of the subway conductor, you, and the guy cutting lumber in the Canadian Rockies. We're looking to grab that attention by generating interest with something magnetic enough to make them curious about your little musings. If you hadn't already guessed from the title of this lesson, the tool we're going to be using to do that is suspense. It's the most important tool in your writer's toolbox. A lack of it in your musings is what turns your book into a doorstop. Learn how to create it and manage it, and you'll save your book that sad fate. Think of suspense as the adhesive to hold your reader's interest. You always want to have a little glue on every page. And this is such an important tool that we should discuss it in detail, because again, understanding of this all-important component of fiction is going to help us understand how to hit our target, brains. In common parlance, suspense is a word we associate with the summer blockbuster or the latest James Patterson novel, and rightly so. Those narratives are well-crafted artifacts designed to get a lot of brains to intensely experience the feeling we most associate with the word suspense. Yes, but you clever listeners know by now that words are categories that catch a collection of fuzzy things that are all somewhat similar, and the general definition of suspense is drawn in too fine a circle by far. Most people think of suspense in this small context, as a narrative device that keeps you glued to your seat or turning pages in a thriller. But it's not a narrative device at all. It's an emotional experience, a feeling. The sensation you get when you don't know the outcome and something's at stake. These books and movies we categorize as suspense are just particularly geared toward provoking this sensation. You experience suspense all the time outside fiction. Just think about it. While waiting for your sister to have her baby, while running through an airport trying to make a short connection, when your kid has a chance to score a goal at a pee-wee soccer game, when there's a wildfire in the hills near the lake where you vacation, when there's a snowstorm and you're not quite sure they'll cancel school, when a crazy guy starts shouting on the train. You're an old pro at experiencing suspense, and soon you'll be a pro at generating it too. We feel suspense when we read or watch movies, the same way we feel sadness when a character dies, or euphoria when he finally, after all that fussing about, gives in to his desire and tells that girl that he can't live without her, and they kiss and just, ah. You're trying to get a brain to do that, to experience the tension that goes along with not knowing an outcome and wanting to. Fortunately for us, if we know what we're aiming at, it's not super difficult. We do it naturally with our characters. Robert Sapolsky, the brilliant neurobiologist I referenced in the last lesson, lists this as one of the main things that sets us apart from other primates. It's a tremendous feat of cognition. One example he gives is of Picasso's painting of a horse fleeing its barn during the firebombing of Guernica, and the emotional effect this painting is capable of generating in a person. If you really think about it, Sapolsky says, there's no way that object should produce any effect in us. A piece of canvas, covered with dried oil blotches that very roughly resemble a fictional animal of another species we bear no relation to and have no business caring about at all? Still, somehow this painting reliably affects people emotionally. We may not know exactly how, why, and when humans acquired this ability, but we do know that we do it, and we do it easily and early. Developmental psychologists have long since documented that babies reliably ascribe narrative roles to shapes like triangles, circles, and squares, and experience positive or negative emotion towards these characters, depending on whether that square was the good guy or the bad guy of the scene portrayed. We are naturals at ascribing emotions to fictional representations, and underpinning all of those emotions is the suspense that keeps us adhered to the simulation, whether it's circles and squares, burning horses, or the latest James Patterson thriller so packed to the brim with suspense that we named a genre after it. You might be prompted to ponder, as I did for many years, that if suspense is really an emotion, and a key one at that, wouldn't we have a name for this emotion? One that is foundational and could be measured neurochemically and could be traced back evolutionarily to very primitive animal brains? I wonder about stuff like that, and occasionally, whilst reading books about the brain, I come across the answers to such questions. In this case, I found the answer in the latest book from the aforementioned Robert Sapolsky. He calls this emotion stress. Yes, stress. But isn't stress a bad thing? Why would you want your reader to experience stress? According to Sapolsky, whether stress is good or bad really depends on the amount of stress and the context. He puts it like this: we love stress that is mild and transient and occurs in a benevolent context. The stressful menace of a roller coaster ride is that it will make us queasy, not that it will decapitate us. It lasts for 3 minutes, not 3 days. We love that kind of stress, clamor for it, pay to experience it. What do we call that optimal amount of stress? Being engaged, engrossed, and challenged, being stimulated, playing. The core of psychological stress is loss of control and predictability, but in benevolent settings, we happily relinquish control and predictability to be challenged by the unexpected, a dip in the roller coaster tracks, a plot twist, a difficult line drive heading our way, an opponent's unexpected chess move. Surprise me, this is fun. The complete absence of stress is aversely boring. Moderate, transient stress is wonderful. Various aspects of brain function are engaged, glucocorticoid levels in that range enhance dopamine release, rats work at pressing levers in order to be infused with just the right amount of glucocorticoids. We love the right amount of stress, would wither without it. That kind of stress sounds an awful lot like the feeling we were discussing earlier, like when you're about to miss your connection at the airport or your kid is about to score a goal. Stress, suspense. Sapolsky even mentions a literal plot twist as a source of stress. Good enough. But I'm here to tell you that if your plot is well constructed, it's not just a twist in it that will cue your readers to experience that Goldilocks zone of glucocorticoid-inducing stress. Your whole plot will, from start to finish. And yes, you do want to stress your readers out a little. Stress and suspense may not be exactly synonymous, but it's clear from Sapolsky's description of stress and our understanding of suspense in a general sense that we're barking up the same tree, at least cognitively speaking. If our target is another brain, what we're trying to do is get that reader's brain to experience the benevolent stress that Sapolsky describes, and to stimulate the resultant dopamine release associated with it. In order to do that, we're going to need our readers to experience suspense, narratively speaking, that is. So what do I mean when I say suspense in a narrative sense? Not surprisingly, for readers you're overwhelmingly familiar with by now, narrative suspense is tricky to define. One good definition comes from the brilliant narrative theorist Mary Lore Ryan, who describes it as the reader's desire for the knowledge that awaits at the end of narrative time. And for reasons mentioned earlier, I think even this is a definition drawn too narrow as well, because it's not just knowledge we're after when we consume a narrative, and it's not just at the end. We desire to witness the events that have grabbed our interest and experience the emotions of the characters involved along the way. We enjoy anticipating the moments that lead up to a climax and resolution, and we like to hope for a certain outcome as much as we enjoy learning the canonical outcome that differs from all the possible outcomes we might anticipate. All of these experiences are suspense too. Suspense is the glue that holds our interest in a story, whether there's a bomb on the bus, or a little girl loses her teddy bear at the grocery store, or two old friends who have lived their entire lives together are saying goodbye one last time. Emotions are messy, mysterious things, cognitively speaking, and we've only just begun to untangle the mess they make in our brain. And I'm not sure language helps cognitive scientists all that much in this regard. If you take love, for example, it's a word we use in English very generally to describe a feeling we have about our kids, our spouses, our siblings, our dogs, a season, a chocolate cupcake, Tchaikovsky, and Game of Thrones. You know you do. Yet another example of the porousness of borders. We wouldn't feel the exact same sensations if we were naked in a shopping mall versus giving a wrong answer aloud in a math class. And we certainly wouldn't feel that sensation with the same intensity in those differing circumstances. But we'd use the same word, embarrassment, because it's kinda close enough that other people will know what you mean by that word when you use it. They've probably had roughly the same feeling in their life too. Most of the words we have for emotions are just decent enough categories that they convey the general idea, but imperfectly, and never with much resolution concerning the intensity of the experience. You'd experience the fear intensity of a great white shark from a boat 50 yards away very differently from that same fear if it were 3 feet from you and you were in the water. I mention this to a purpose. Suspense will be appropriately diffused throughout a narrative in a similar manner. If the narrative is well crafted, that is. That's why you feel the climax coming and know when it's happening. That shark is right there. We'll cover why suspense is necessarily varied over the course of a story, and we'll talk about how to do this appropriately in the next lesson. For now, I'm going to leave you with some good news and some bad news, and then some hope for dealing with the bad. The good news is this: people love suspense. They love it. They lap it up in every form, whether it comes from sports or politics or movies or gossip. If you can give them a little, you'll be a star. And one surefire way to do that is with a good cognitive simulation in written form. And a very cool and not widely thought about aspect of stories is their remote past, the tribe's storyteller at the campfire or the wandering bard coming to town. There's a related psychological phenomenon called behavioral contagion. If a few people begin to look in the same direction at the same time, there's a very good chance that others will too, and the bigger the crowd, the more reliably people's attention will be drawn to something. If 1,000 people are looking at something, there's a strong chance it's worth your attention as well. With stories, the phenomenon is the same. Over time, a storyteller who generated enough narrative suspense reliably drew interest from a few listeners, and those few drew a small crowd. That crowd drew more and more people the bigger it got. Over time, we've built technological structures that signal value for stories that reliably generate interest worthy of a listener or observer's time. These signals tell people that giving up their time and even money to experience this story is a valuable trade, just the way a gathering of 1,000 people in the amphitheater used to signal the same. Storytelling is ultimately a social activity at its roots, a speaker and an audience. And the size of the audience, and the audience's manner, signaled the story's worth. Now, structures like movie theaters, bookstores, publishing houses, and even the physical existence of a book itself exude a value signifying that the story within is worth something. This is important because the book itself, the storytelling situation, just like a gathered crowd in days gone by, presents your reader with a baseline amount of suspense encoded in the storytelling experience. That's the good news. If the book is in a reader's hand, you've got a slice of their interest. Think of this as a grace period. The bad news is this: unless you're Stephen King and your name is on the cover, hi Stephen, you've probably got a name like Roe, and your grace period is very short. It's going to vary from reader to reader. You must carry the reader's feeling of suspense from that grace period, from the opening of the cover and wondering what's inside, to the very first cue of suspense in the story itself. They might give you a page, they might give you 2, but unless you're Stephen and they give you 40 on prestige, reputation, and past experience, you're going to have to snatch their attention early. Your words, your cognitive cues, must offer them an experience worth feeling, and it must do it in a way that it glues them to the text, because there are a lot more valuable things they could be doing with their time than reading the musings of a random stranger. You are a telemarketer. That's the bad news. Here's the hope. Narrative suspense, cued early and properly managed through the course of a functioning plot, is one of the most satisfying human experiences we have, and you're going to give your reader just that. We'll discuss what a properly functioning plot looks like next. Thanks for hanging in there.